Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. What I'm about to say to you, I want you to listen up and listen really, really good. The first thing is, I do have my cinnamon in my coffee, and you need yours in your coffee for this, okay? I want you to sit back, and I want you to relax, and I want you to listen very, very, very closely to what I'm about to read to you. Normally I don't like to read articles to you, but what I want you to do, besides having your cinnamon in your coffee and relaxing and listening to this, what I want you to think to yourself before I begin to read this, ask yourself one question. Of all the digital assets out there, as I read this, ask yourself if there's even one that is even bordering on the power and the connections of XRP and Ripple, just even anywhere close in the realm of how powerful what is being built is. This is an article, it was sent to me, or not sent to me, but I read this tweet from at SCY Crypt, CRYPT. And they sent me this article, and when I read this, the title of the article is The Ripple Mafia, okay? And when I read this tweet and I went and read this article, this is hands down the most fascinating article I have ever read about Ripple since I began in this in 2013 or so. This is going to blow your mind if you will pay attention. And so it's worth your time and worth listening to what I'm about to read. Here it goes. The article starts, and it's called, again, the Ripple Mafia. What if I told you that the Nobel Prize laureate and economist Milton Friedman talked about electronic cash back in 1999? Or how about that cyberpunks have been calling for decentralized and anonymous financial transactions since 1993? And finally, David Chaum wrote a paper on anonymous electric money all the way back in 1982. So when it comes to the world of cryptocurrencies, there's a lot going on in the background that most of us are unaware of. Many conversations are had and decisions made behind the curtain by influential individuals and organizations long before the general public is aware. And among all this commotion, one crypto company stands out, Ripple. It is a skillful player in the world of politics, having established strong, widespread relationships with the most powerful decision makers and thought leaders. This surely to be a key pillar of Ripple's success. Oh, and what if I told you that Ripple was older than Bitcoin? Ripple, the company, Ripple, they've got a logo in here. Today we'll talk about some interesting connections between Ripple and numerous influential individuals, including Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Peter Thiel, the powerful organizations, including IMF, Google, and the U.S. Federal Reserve. Ripple's primary vision is to enable the world to move money as fast as information. With over 300 employees and with offices in the USA, UK, Australia, Singapore, India, Luxembourg, Japan, and Dubai, Ripple provides service to over 100 corporate clients. Their products, XCurrent, XVIA, XRapid, are gaining traction and are being incorporated by huge names like Temenos. Even more, Chris Larson, the executive chairman of Ripple, believes that XRP could even help prevent the next financial crisis by releasing the tied-up capital. But how did everything begin? Now, before I talk about how things began and read this part of this, I want to mention I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with this in relation to how XRP came about, because that involves the security issue. And I haven't gone through and looked at their timeline on that. What I want you to get out of this article is how connected and how powerful Ripple is, because that is the reason that I'm so adamant about about where we're all going with this. Okay, back to the article. But how did everything begin? Ron Fugger started developing Ripple in 2004. In 2012, it was turned into OpenCoin Inc. by Jed McCaleb, Arthur Brito, David Schwartz, and Chris Larson. A year later, the company was backed by some of the best-known venture funds in Silicon Valley. They include Google Ventures, Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, and Andreessen Horowitz, the company that sold Skype to Microsoft for a whopping $8.5 billion. And then the next title of this section is the PayPal Mafia. Speaking of Peter Thiel, let's talk about the PayPal Mafia. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Steve Chen, Reid Hoffman, and Russell Simmons all worked together at PayPal. They later sold it to eBay for $1.5 billion to split the cash and create multiple billion-dollar companies of their own. The list is long and includes names like SpaceX, Tesla, YouTube, Yelp, and LinkedIn. Well done, guys. We are seeing a similar pattern in the world of crypto with the creation of Stellar and Tron. Jed McCaleb, the founder of OpenCoin, Mt. Gox, and eDonkey, left Ripple to set up Stellar, that is currently sitting at $5 billion market cap. Later in 2016, Justin Sun left Ripple to create Tron, currently evaluated at more than $1.5 billion. Who will be the next Elon Musk, and what will be the next YouTube? That we don't know. What we know pretty well, though, is that Ripple is building something huge. You'll see why in a moment. And then the next section is called Ripple's Top Management, third-party relationships. Let's start by taking a look at some of their current directors and their relationship with big organizations. Chris Larson is the executive chairman, one of the co-founders of OpenCoin with an extensive fintech background, being a member of the Fintech High-Level Advisory Group at IMF and HSBC's Technology Advisory Board. He is making sure that Ripple's interests are taken into consideration by the global governing organizations. Susan Athey, an economic consultant to the Microsoft and Ripple's board member, is another key player. She is responsible for the partnership between Ripple and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This partnership aims at banking the unbanked in the developing countries where nearly 2 billion people neither have a bank account nor use any financial services. Ken Kurson is a person who's closely related to the Trump family. He served as the executive vice president of Jamestown Associates, which runs controversial pro-Republican advertising campaigns in the U.S., including, of course, for Donald Trump. He almost joined the 45th president's administration, but was halted by sexual harassment allegations. In spite of that, he still has close ties to the Trump family. Gene Sperling was the economic advisor to Hillary Clinton during their 2016 presidential campaign and served as the National Economic Council Director and the National Economic Advisor under Presidents Clinton and Obama. David Schwartz, Ripple's lead developer, used to be on the board before he gave his spot to Ken Kurson. David has worked for CNN and NSA on multiple occasions. These are just some of the Ripple's directors and their cozy relationships with the rich and the powerful of our world. If you look closer, even more fascinating details come to light. Ripple and the Bilderberg Group, the connection. What is the connection between Ripple and the Bilderberg Group? After all, it's a forum established in 1954 for immensely influential individuals and organizations to engage, interact, and share ideas. Senior decision makers from companies like IBM, Xerox, Nokia, Daimler, Google, and Amazon meet together with monarchs, politicians, academics every year to discuss business opportunities. Interestingly enough, Susan Athey joined Ripple shortly after attending the Bilderberg Group meeting in 2013. Anna Boten was invited to the meeting in 2015 on the account of being Banco Santander's chairman. 4 months later, the bank invested in Ripple. Peter Thiel, one of the early Ripple investors, and his colleagues are present at almost every Bilderberg Group meeting. Bill Clinton is another member of the group who was also the keynote speaker at this year's Ripple Swell. Ben Bernanke, the former Federal Reserve chairman, who also regularly participates in those meetings, was the keynote speaker at Swell last year. interests of numerous businesses, organizations, and pressure groups are represented in these gatherings. Nonetheless, it seems clear that Ripple's agenda is being successfully pushed forward. The CME and digital currency group, the surprising ties. Who else might be connected to Ripple? Well, a better question would be, who is not connected to Ripple? The famous CME group that offers crypto futures is an investor in Ripple and has one of its executives, Miguel Valles, in Ripple's top management. Leo Melamed, CME Group's chairman, once said, "We'll tame Bitcoin." Quite an ambition. Another investor in Ripple is Digital Currency Group. The group has a stake in Coinbase and many other crypto-related services. Speaking of Coinbase, let's take a look at Ripple's partnership with Via Americas Corporation. Its co-founder and CEO, Paul Dwyer, is a board chairman of the Money Services Business Association. The MSBA works directly with the Securities Exchange Commission. If SEC declares that XRP is a security, then it will be taxed for capital gains every time it is bought and sold. Such an outcome would diminish XRP's value proposition. If SEC states that XRP is not a security, many doors will open, and one of them will lead to a listing on Coinbase. Furthermore, Ripple, together with a group of companies, have formed the Securing America's Internet of Value Coalition. This organization employed services of the Klein Johnson Group, a bipartisan lobbying firm, to raise issues with SEC and other government agencies involved in the regulation of cryptocurrencies. Ripple and its influential leaders know really well how to protect their interests, and they are actively doing it. Overall, Ripple has partnered with more than 100 banks and financial service providers around the world. These names include, but are not limited to, American Express, MoneyGram, Standard Chartered, UniCredit, BBVA, Santander, and Credit Agricole. The expansion continues. Later this year, Ripple is opening an office in Dubai and partnering with 3 banks in Saudi Arabia, 2 in Kuwait, and 1 in Bahrain. Latin America's largest banks will soon use Ripple to process payments. One of the biggest banks in Asia, SBI, is a long-term partner of and investor in Ripple with a presence on the board of directors. The integration of Ripple with Temenos, a B2B finance software solution, was another step forward, as it allowed Ripple to gain access to over 500 million consumer, 3,000 financial institutions in more than 150 countries. To wrap it all up, those whom we see as visionaries understand well that it's the business component of their business of their vision that drives adoption. For better or worse, groundbreaking technology goes nowhere without commerce. It was true for the printing press, so is it for cryptocurrencies. And at the core of building strong commercial base is building strong business relationships. This is something that Ripple truly excels at. And then they finish this article with a quote: "The man who controls the British money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply." Now, people, I'm the digital asset investor. Now I'm talking to you. What I've just read to you is one of the best summations of how connected that the people at Ripple are, and how interwoven into the fabric of the most powerful people on the planet. In my lifetime, I've seen many startups. I've never, ever, not one time in my entire life have I heard of a startup company of any kind that's 5 years old having even bordering on the connections that Ripple has. Nowhere even close. I mean, of course, startup companies, especially in Silicon Valley, a lot of times they have board members that are connected in one way or another. But I have never, ever seen any company attract the kind of talent that Ripple has. I've never seen a company with the level of connected talent that is out there fighting the fight, and where there's a more coordinated effort to make something change the entire world. And I believe that this is being done, and I believe that this group has been put together because they know that this is going to be a world-conquering company. We're talking about the potential of the largest company, not in the world, but in the history of the world, in Ripple. That's how big this is. Now, I've told you, many of you, the story when I got into this in 2013 or so, and I was looking at the list on CoinMarketCap. I was just like many of you. I originally invested in Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin, and then I sat there for a minute, and I said, as I recall, Bitcoin was $200 or so at the time that I got in this. And I said, these guys, I hear the stories about these guys that bought in Bitcoin below pennies. Well, I wonder if there's any other of these digital assets that if I bought them, I could be that guy who owns thousands of them, and then this company gets big. So I went one by one down the list of the top 10 or 15 cryptocurrencies on CoinMarketCap. This was back in 2013. And what I found is the same thing I find today. You go down that list, you visit the websites of every one of these projects, you will not find one digital asset that's even in the universe of Ripple in terms of what they are doing, how connected they are, the people that are involved, and the people that are helping to move this project along, the confidence that these people speak with. You will not find one, not even close. And it stands to this day. But the other thing, and the bigger thing that I saw when all this happened, when Bitcoin first came out, and to this day, many of the Bitcoin people are still like this. They had Bitcoin and said, oh, we're anarchists, and we want to get the governments and the banks out of the world. And I've told you before, maybe when I was 20 years old, I would have bought into that. But I'm now 44 years old. I've been around. That's a quote from another one of my favorite movies, Scent of a Woman, which is Al Pacino. He says, I've been around, or something to that effect in his speech at the end of the movie, which is one of the greatest speeches of all time in movies, by the way. But back to my point. After looking at that, what I said to myself, and I still to this day say to myself, that's not how things get done in the world. That's pie in the sky dreams. Those are the dreams of young people who have not been around and don't realize that that's not the way the world works. The governments of the world, one way or another, will find a way to get control of all of this. And if Bitcoin's if they're trying to come at it from the standpoint of an anarchist, they will lose. Well, while Bitcoin was started that way, Ripple has been forging relationships behind the scenes for the last 5 years. Look at those two digital assets. Bitcoin has not had a leader at the helm. Ripple has had a leader at the helm. They've had that leader forging relationships and making decisions on behalf of that company that are going to change the world. Bitcoin, that was the wrong approach. You couldn't just put something out like that and okay, well, it'll do that. And what you've seen with Bitcoin, even though all of those people, their pie in the sky dream was for Bitcoin to just become some anarchist tool and we'll just get rid of the banks and all. Well, look who's adopting it now, just because it was the first mover. The banks are co-opting Bitcoin because it was never a reality to get the governments and banks out of the system. That's not going to happen. Now, I do believe, and that's not because I approve of what the governments and banks have done. I've told you on many, many occasions, I think it's shameful what the banks and the central governments of the world have done. But I'm also not naive enough to believe that we will not get where we want to be as investors without the governments and banks of the world approval, because that's the way the world works. So what I just read to you is important. I didn't read it to you for the conspiratorial aspect. I've never seen an article that ties together so many important people and ties together what Ripple is and represents as well as that article. And I hope you enjoyed it. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family that Ripple could very well be the largest company in the history of the world. Thanks for listening.